2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 15. There was war again between the Philistines and Israel, and David went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistines. And David grew very weary. And the Ishi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with a new sword, thought to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "You shall no longer go out with us to a battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel." After this, there was war with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai, the Hushathite, struck down Saph, who was one of the descendants of the giants. And there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. And Elhanan, the son of Jerah-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he also was descended from the giants. And when he had taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. These 4 were descended from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Okay. Stop here. Okay. So what happened before all this? How did we get to this place?
Oh, Lord, last week. Trying to remember. Well, last week we talked about David. There was the famine in the land. And so after 3 years, David seeks God and says, "Why is there a famine?" And God immediately tells him, because of the bloody rule of Saul, and particularly what he did to the Gibeonites. So then he goes to the Gibeonites and he says, "We want to make amends for what happened. What shall we do?" And they basically said that they don't want Israel to do it, that they'd do it themselves, but that they would seek to have 7 men from Saul's family be hung. And then we read the story of what was her name? Rizpah?
Yep.
Okay, Rizpah. And how she sat by and David saw what she was doing, so David goes and gets the bones of Saul and Jonathan, and then takes them with the remains of the bodies, and they bury them in Kish,
Yep.
in the grave of Kish, right? And that's how we got where we are.
Right.
Yeah, and then we go straight to battle.
Then we go right to battle.
Right.
That's the Jewish way.
Right. Well, also as a reminder, this is what the prophet had told David would happen.
Yep.
That the sword would never leave your family,
That's right.
or your hand, type of thing. Basically, you will continue to have war, and that's what we're saying here. And there was again. Talk about, and there was again. Yeah, just over and over. And remember that the Bible often doesn't write down everything that happens, right? So it's conflict after conflict here. Interesting that it's with the Philistines. What do we know about the Philistines? I only know one thing. Well, 2 things. I know 2 things. They're foreigners.
They were
And they're
farmers.
big.
Foreigners.
Oh, foreigners.
Foreigners, sorry.
They're foreigners and
Get the
they're
right
big.
accent there.
Not
Foreigners
giants.
and big guys.
And at least some of them were.
Yeah, yeah,
Some of them were giants.
yeah. Which is
You know what I
And
find?
David had history with them.
and David had some history.
He got some serious foreskin history, and they never forget that. I know you. But what gets me about this is I find that, remember when Israel was asking for a king? And our Lord says, "You don't want a king." And one of the reasons he said was because what he's going to do in the end is going to send your kids to war. And I think it's kind of ironic. They get to the point now, look, David doesn't say, "Hey, listen, y'all, I'm going to step back." They tell him, "No, you stay where you're at, because without you, we're not even a nation. So as a nation, they're not even looking to God anymore.
Right.
David is their king. And it makes you see, we see how faith wanes as time goes on. You kind of forget who got you where you're at, so to speak. It wasn't David, it was God. And I love it. Now they tell David, you stay back. We'll fight these battles for you. So I find that interesting that what God foretold happened, and it wasn't even now the people bringing it. It's almost like the world today. How quickly we forget and we bring things upon ourselves.
Yeah.
We just it's that's what strikes me about that. I just remember what God says: you don't want a king. Saul did it, and this time the people tell David,
Right.
Stay where you're at.
Yep.
I find that interesting.
We have at the end of 14, going into 15, where it says God responded. I forgot the exact wording. All right, what did it say? It said, at the end of 14. And after that, God responded to the plea for the land. And then we transition into this war.
Right.
So I'm assuming that means rain came,
Right.
is what that means. But do you think that means that was what was pleasing to God? That David's actions from above here about the 7 sons being killed and stuff was what pleased God? I personally, I would tell you, I'll go as the leading question. I personally say no, it's not. I think David never actually seeked God for a solution when the Gibeonites came and said, hey, such and such. He did seek God to find out what was wrong, find out it was the blood oath that was a problem. But really about, should I bring Saul's 7 sons to here? It was never sought that I can tell by God.
Doesn't say it here.
It certainly doesn't. And I really don't think this, because it's stated as a reminder, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because it's stated doesn't mean this is what God wanted.
Right.
The wars that we're about to see. Because they're stated, I don't think this is what God wanted. I think these are the results of
Their decisions. This is just illustrating that. Sometimes we justify war by saying, well, look, God put, he made all these wars, so it must be right, that we have to fight with the Philistines. I don't think this is right. This is just what happened. At least that's the way I'm reading this, because you don't see where it says God is pleased in here. I think the oath was made with the Gibeonites, and I think we got to remember that. And in the end, you're right. Man makes decisions, and God was, in the end, with the Philistines. I mean, it's sometimes your battle is because, even in the New Testament it says, if it's up to you, keep peace.
Right.
But sometimes it's not up to you, because that son of a gun value just will not give you peace and wants to torment you. So I think in this case, the Philistines just hated the Jews. And for whatever, and I think it was vice versa. I think you hit the nail on the head. And we kind of forget sometimes what David did.
Yeah.
You got to go back to Saul. So it's just, unfortunately, you're right. I don't think God's sovereign. He's so sovereign.
There are times in the Old Testament, some of them even really bizarre from our viewpoint.
Yes.
Where God told them to wipe out
Yes.
everybody and everything. And we just, whether it makes sense to us, it's
Right.
kind of like animal sacrifice may not strike us as making
Right.
sense, but that's what God directed.
Right. We're on this side of the cross.
Yes.
Right.
We're looking at this from the New Testament side. And a lot of this stuff that's in the Old Testament is very confusing.
Right.
Yes, it is.
It is very hard to understand this.
Yes.
And I'm admitting that it is. I don't have the magic answer to how to reconcile this. This is just what it is.
But we're also looking at this from a human perspective too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Differently from the way that God looks at,
Yeah.
at this situation
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Because, when we read the whole story last week and, we talked about the Gibeonites and then what they asked and, the outcome and you look at that and you say, how is it fair? How is that right to take these men who had nothing to do with this
Exactly.
and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you're going to say you're going to lose your life for
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
You
It
know?
talks about the New Testament about not doing human sacrifices.
Right.
And yet, that's basically
This
what that
basically is
was.
a
It seemed to be a
human
human
sacrifice.
sacrifice.
For
Right.
for
Given
rank.
this. Right. Yeah. It just, I have a hard time reconciling to this.
Yeah,
and
but yet God honored.
yeah,
Maybe he didn't honor the act, but he honored the fact that the treaty was,
Right. It's amazing how he honors the oath,
yes,
the promises
Yes.
made.
Yes.
Even the Israelites making that very bad deal with the Gibeonites that kind of started this
Right.
this stuff here.
Yeah.
They honor the oath. I mean, that should be a story for us. That let your yes be yes and let your
Right.
no's be no's. That kind of
Right.
a thing. That when you say you're going to do or be or whatever, that's it.
But you know what? I like what you started us off with. So many times we want to bring so much, even in the new and the old, and apply it to everybody. You
Right.
can't do it. Like you said, you can't apply it. You got to look at these stories and you know what? Like I said, you got to get some finer points out of it, but don't try to you see what God did there?
So that
What
justifies
did.
my actions,
That's
right there.
exactly, and that's what happens so much in religion
Yeah.
today. Our religion.
Oh, yeah.
They want to justify this because look, God did it back in right after Adam. Look what he did to Adam.
Right. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
All right. There's a phrase here that I wanted to talk about. If I can get my cursor back to where it's supposed to be. It's the phrase, "And David grew weary." That was right. That's what it's 15, right? It's kind of almost the end of 15. When I first read that through in my first pass, I was thinking, well, he grew weary of war. I just kind of a philosophical, kind of thing. But as I read further, and all these people were helping him out, I went, you know what? No, it's probably not about that, but about his physical tired. I mean, he's gotten older. We don't know exactly the timings of this because it's not really laid in chronological, order. But I assume he's just older. He's not a spring chicken anymore.
Not a
right?
spring chicken.
Yeah. When I started realizing this, that's probably, that's what stinks about getting older, is your body kind of, says, you're not as young as you used to be. My first time was when I was playing basketball, and I had gotten, I don't know, I was maybe 40-ish or something like that, I guess. And, you jump up and you land wrong. And it took you forever to recover from that, That was when I realized, I am actually getting old. I'm not my 20s any longer.
Yeah.
So getting old stinks.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. So I have to take back all those bad things I said about the old people.
Yeah, I hear that.
We are one.
We are the old people now.
That's right. That's right.
So what's the response of the people around him that when David basically grew weary? We see what happened. He almost got killed, right? By this guy who had a spear that weighed 300 shekels. I don't know what a shekel is. Don't have any idea what the weight is, but sure it must be heavy. That's all I know.
Yeah, I hear that.
About 2/5 of an ounce.
2/5 of an ounce. So
Shekel.
did they tell you ultimately how much that weighed? I still can't relate. 300
shekels
2/5.
be 2/5. Oh Lord.
So I have
It's
no
heavy.
idea of an ounce. I don't know what 2/5
Go back to
of
David
300 ounces
Goliath
are.
and probably give.
But anyways,
Yes.
but they thought to kill David, but Abishai, which is interesting because Abishai is the son of Zeruiah. I think he's one of the priests. He takes care of this big guy here. And so we see that after and after. Then David's man swore, "You shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel." Really goes to show you
Now,
how
I'll
much.
tell you what I could do now. If you really want me to, I can go with a prosperity doctrine here, and you see God will kill giants in your life. That's what he'll take out of this. What I'm trying to say is what we're talking about. God, who's your Goliath in your life today? And I'm sorry, that's what they'll say. They'll pull out a scripture. Now, how, you see what I mean?
Yes.
Because when you said that, and that's what they'll say. You can't, we got to keep things in perspective here.
You do.
This is a literal giant, and that's what I find is it gives you, as far as with the Philistines, kind of keeps you, go back to Goliath. Goliath was not just one of these rarities. The Philistines had quite a few of these giants in them.
That's been a whole family or
Family line. That's
Yes.
kind of what I was thinking.
I would think so too.
I think
And
probably.
It looks like one of them's even named Goliath again.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just wondering, that's why I think it makes the scripture so authentic. Is think about this chapter. If you really, from what we're reading, 15:1. Why is it even in here? If think about it, that's what I love about the Bible. It tells you things that you wouldn't. Well, it's in here because it's authentic,
Right.
and it's giving you what was going on with the Jews and the Philistines back
Right.
then. That's what I love about the Bible. I mean, this is a battle.
And it certainly was putting proof, if you will, to the words of the prophet, that the sword will not leave your hand here. So
One of the interesting things is you wonder where this story fits in David's reign as king.
right.
Because it seems like it very much fits in with where it's located, because you see that whole change in David's stature, in his attitude, and the way that he deals with things towards the end. You know, it's like after the whole deal with Absalom, and he just becomes this not the mighty warrior that he
Right.
was. Almost like somebody going through the motions of being
Right.
king,
Right.
you know, and not taking, and having to have people come behind him and kind of prop him up, you know, and tell him, hey, you need to look kingly because everybody else is looking at
Right.
you. And, you know, it's interesting. I'm thinking that it probably fits pretty close to this whole, you know,
Yeah.
at least after the Absalom incident.
Yeah.
But here there's another incident of people having to instruct David and prop him up, and
Yeah.
you know,
Both mentally and physically.
Yes.
Not where it used to be.
Right.
yep,
Yeah. And as I apply it to my life, I absolutely need that as well. I need people to give me real good counsel. You know, even the older I get, I'm constantly, you know, realizing I need counsel. You know, when I was a young whippersnapper, I didn't need counsel because I knew it all. That's right.
yes,
I could do it all, and I knew it all.
Yes.
I guess the older you get, the less you know, or the less you realize you know, right? Absolutely.
yeah. And well, I guess adding to what I was saying too, and it appears that David took the advice,
Yeah.
you know, which is another thing that you know, I mean, he gave it up. David always sought God for his direction, but now it appears that he's willing to take the advice of other people.
Yeah.
You know, in the way, you know, maybe understanding more of who he is and what his responsibilities are.
Right,
You know,
right.
that it's not all about David, that it's about more than David. It's about the kingdom.
Right, that lamp
You
of
know?
Israel.
Yeah.
Right? that light that is a unique nation among nations. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then we see in 18 again another war. We see in 20 another war. Skip 19, so 18, 19, 20, three different wars, if you will. Same people though, Philistines. They just cannot seem to resolve them.
Yeah, you're right. Can't resist. That's interesting. Can't resist. And I guess as far as that region goes, nothing has changed.
No.
2,000 years later, well,
No.
whatever. I mean,
When people
3,000
start
years later.
doing, you know, things they think might either be God's will or just trying to do what God has not said to do, they just. You know,
Well, it's just hatred
it's a mess.
between.
Yeah.
You know, I look at it, hatred between two different
The Hatfields and
different
the
people.
McCoys.
I mean,
Yeah,
you have the Jewish people and you got Ishmael and I mean, that's what I find amazing about this conflict between. I'm gonna just put the Arabs as a whole and Israel. If you go back to Ishmael and Isaac and you start from that moment on,
Right.
it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's amazing that how much conflict there was at the beginning, and it hasn't changed between those people.
Right.
And there's no middle ground.
Yeah. It is amazing.
And that's both sides. They both hate each other with
So,
a passion.
so what's our lesson here? What's the application other than more history?
That God will defeat the giants in your.
That's it. Who's your Goliath against you today? I mean, I tell you what, bring me. I was gonna say something. Bring me north of I-12, and I can do it, baby. I can be there Sunday morning. Who's your Goliath, my son? Tell me who he is, and God will take him out. And then his brothers and his cousins too.
Don't worry, folks. I will edit.
And
this
you will
part.
edit this out. I know. That's why I was gonna.
Yeah, you're on tape.
Yeah, that's prosperity doctrine. It's like, oh, and it's amazing. It's a shame the way people can twist it.
Like, yeah, you hear that though on the, like the Joel Osteen and
Yeah.
whatever it is.
That's
it's
it.
all prosperity, which does a lot of damage instead of good.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll take, I'm serious, I've heard them, something like this story, and just the word,
Yeah.
that's what they'll say. And it's
That is
like
what they'll say.
when you said that, it's so true. You know, why is it in here? But don't try to make something is God honoring murder
Right.
and no, don't try to put more than what it is.
Right. Yeah. The only thing I see at the end of this is that this is
Yes.
the fulfillment of the promises that were made, or the proclamation or the prophet statement here.
And a little shows you a little bit about David, like you said, he's getting old, he can't fight. I mean, it's,
Well, yeah, and I think that's the other thing we see here too is if you look at this, all right, so they go to war. This one giant steps up and he's going to kill David, and then Abishai says, "Look, you need to step back," right? So evidently David does, because the next 3 times they go to battle, another giant steps up,
Right.
but instead of David being the one to step up, another one of the Israelites steps up and winds up killing the giant.
Right.
Right. So David took the advice, laid back, and because he did, Israel was able to be successful in battle with the Philistines because David took the advice of.
now who's quiet in this? This is when you said that. Who's
Oh,
not
God.
even mentioned here?
Yeah,
No,
God.
so not God, someone else, a person. Who's quiet? And you think he wouldn't be? Next king, Solomon. Solomon's not even mentioned in here. That's what gets me. And I think when you said it, it dawned on me, where's Solomon at with all this? Because he is the parent. He's coming. He's the heir to the throne. So I'm curious.
And right now,
Yeah.
I'm not clear on how old he would be.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. It's
yeah.
awful quiet about Solomon, and because a lot of times they'll say, "Well, don't worry, Solomon's here in case something does happen to our king."
Right. Yeah. The chronology can be confusing here. What's what?
Yeah, because I know we'll have to look it up because of the first son that died, that was hung from Absalom. So we don't know. So I mean, that's what I find so. And if you keep reading, I don't even think Solomon really ever shows up as a warrior king like that.
No, as a matter of fact, the prophet talks about that his
He'll be
house will continue and in a peace.
Yeah,
Talks
so it's
about that.
kinda-
But that peace will not be found in David's life.
That's what I find. That's what I find pretty interesting. That when Solomon takes over,
Yeah.
he wasn't even a part of this, which
Right.
makes me kind of God said, "No, I'm going to separate y'all two."
Right,
When I made
interesting.
this prophecy, I'm going to separate y'all. So I don't even want Solomon in all this.
Right.
So
Okay. I just wanted to real quickly, because when I read ahead a little bit, it's just, man, just verse 2 and 3, 4, just we don't really have. It's just in 22, chapter 2, 22.
22.
It's just I'll start 1. And David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered it from the hands of the enemies and the hand from Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold, my refuge, my Savior. You save me from violence. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies." And he goes on, but man, it's going to be great getting into this next week, because it is a great long song that goes on. I mean, he got inspired and wrote himself a song here.
And it looks like it's repeated in Psalms.
Oh yeah.
that's true.
And
I think
I think there's another psalm that's real similar, where
Yeah.
instead of rock and fortress is rock and buckler.
The Bultrus?
Maybe
Buttress
it's
or
Psalm
something like that?
46.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in there.
So these events, I think, are tied to these songs very much so. And you can now start to see, when you see war after war after war, how God is my refuge, my strength, my all. I mean, it just seems so cool to tie that. You have a background here. It's not some guy that is saying, God is great and he's wonderful, but I've yet never ever experienced, a challenge in my life. If anyone has experienced challenges, it's been David in his life.
Yeah.
He certainly has the authority to speak to how great God is.
Yeah.
And he's another good example. I mean, of the ultimate ups and
Yes,
downs.
right.
You know, that's what I tell everybody. You know, again, don't take things out of context. I mean, we want to, again, what we're saying is if you know, there's so many Christians out there that says if I just speak it and say it, God's going to bless me. Well, let's look at Paul's life and then the apostles, and let's go to the Old Testament. Let's talk about David. Look at this, the greatest king. You know, look at his ups and his downs.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very scary when you hear people twist the word of God around, because it can mislead a lot of people.
Yes, it can. Can do more harm, Steve said.
A lot more harm. And that's why I read the Bible, like you said, for what it is, and it'll hit you in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Any last comments?
I see you thinking smoke over there.
Okay.
I see
Okay.
smoke.
All right, let's pray.